So, what's a billionaire owner of Oscorp doing in Ranger Council headquarters? And why does he want the shocker? Eric looked up at the display screen. Oscorp has been aggressively acquiring resources for months. Tech, energy, off-world materials. They even tried to buy out the Silver Guardians, but Mr. Collins shut them down fast. They got momentum when Wes went rogue. It made the Ranger Council look divided. Gave Osborn leverage. Artie clenched his fists. What are they planning on doing with the shocker? Eric shook his head. I don't know. If it escalates, we may have to bring in SPD. They won't join the Ranger Council, but they're still Rangers. Just an external force. Sam stepped forward. And what do we do? For now, nothing. Stand down. Rest. Merlin's awake. Why don't you go and see him? You did good today. Power Rangers Royal Britannia, Episode 6, Things Are Changing, the second part. Sat in a chair next to the medical bed, in the medical bay of Ranger Council headquarters, was Merlin, the great wizard and mentor of Universe 20's Royal Britannia Rangers. To the new team of Royal Britannia Rangers, he was a legendary member of Ranger history. He smiled as they walked in. Rangers, good to see you, he said. Merlin, are you okay? What happened? Asked Artie as Jordan and Sam sat on the bed while Jeff and JP stood at the end with Artie. Well, as you know, I, like every Merlin in the multiverse, am linked. And while I do not feel what every Merlin feels, having over 1 billion of us turned to bones clearly had an effect on me. You did pass out right before the Phasenizers attacked, said Sam. That was a weird day. Do you think Morgana was affected as well? Asked JP. For a moment, Merlin looked at JP as if he didn't recognize him, and said, yes, JP, yes, she would, as me and her are of the same kin. Though she doesn't have the link to all her versions of herself, he said. Why's that? Asked Jeff. Firstly, it's a talent only Merlins have. And second, she would probably just argue with herself. Believe me, she has always been disagreeable, in every universe, he chuckled. The team laughed softly before continuing to chat with Merlin, until one of the nurses came over with lunch and asked the team to leave. At the door, JP stopped. Sam noticed. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just being silly. Nothing to worry about. The team then left the medical bay and headed towards their common room in the Ranger Council headquarters. A cool breeze blew into the Rangers' common room as Jeff and Jordan played air hockey across a glowing table in the centre of the room. Go! Shouted Jordan as the puck flew into Jeff's side. Come on! That bounced off the edge, Jeff complained. Across the room, Artie sat brooding quietly in a chair, still wondering about Wes and the Nega Rangers. Meanwhile, JP, using his spider abilities, had stuck himself to the wall close to the roof. Sam walked underneath him and looked up. Come on, JP, tell me what's up. He didn't answer. Don't make me say it. He still didn't answer. Peter Joseph Parker. Okay. No need to use my full name, he said quickly. JP leapt down from the wall, somersaulting through the air before landing perfectly on his feet. I don't know why, but the way Merlin looked at me, the blank expression, it unnerved me, he admitted. Why don't you go talk to him? You've known him a little longer than us, said Sam. Not by much. I came here just after the original Royal Britannia Rangers, he said. his voice trembling slightly as a sad look crossed his face. Sam nodded softly. "I know. At least you didn't react the way Mark did," she said with a small smile. JP laughed slightly. "Was one hell of a punch," said JP. "I thought the same," laughed Sam. JP headed towards the medical bay of the Ranger Council headquarters. As he entered, he noticed Rocky and Eric talking quietly with Merlin. Using his spider agility, JP silently leapt onto the ceiling before crawling carefully across it until he reached a pillar close to Merlin's bed. "Are you sure about this?" asked Rocky. "As sure as I can be," said Merlin gravely. "But we all have memories." "I remember the first," said Eric. Yes. Like us all. I will need to investigate with other Merlins. But where I remember events one way," Merlin paused, "I also remember them another." The three men looked uneasy. Suddenly, Rocky's communicator chimed. "Rocky," came the voice of Adam Park. "We got trouble. Morgana and Wes and the other Nega Rangers are back, along with some big-ass man in a rhino costume." Rocky immediately stood. "We're on our way. Call the Royal Britannia Rangers." The communicator clicked off as Rocky and Eric rushed from the medical bay. JP quickly crawled backwards across the ceiling before dropping silently to the floor and sneaking out just in time. The second he stepped into the corridor, his own communicator chimed loudly. "JP, report to the command chamber immediately." JP exchanged a worried glance towards the medical bay before sprinting down the corridor. The streets erupted in panic as Leviathan, Fenrir, Time Force, and the Nega Queen attacked the city. Rampaging beside them was a massive grey-skinned humanoid rhino. "Osborne wasn't lying. This is fun," shouted the rhino. "This is only the beginning," said the Leviathan Nega Ranger. "The real fun is just starting," added the Fenrir Nega Ranger. Suddenly, 5 figures teleported into the street in a flash of light, landing in a defensive stance. "Okay, you lot, fun time's over," said Artie. He stepped forward slightly, staring directly at Wes. "Wes, this is your last chance. Come with us and we'll help you." But the Nega Time Force Ranger said nothing. "Artie, I think it's time," said JP, as the 5 took up position. "You're right, JP." Artie raised his morpher. "It's time to morph! Go, Royal Britannia!" The 4 Rangers raised their wrist morphers high, power surging through the spinning coins within. English, Irish, Scottish, and Welsh. Brilliant streams of red, green, blue, and white energy spiraled around them as the Royal Britannia Rangers morphed into action. The spider brace unfolded with a mechanical snap, releasing a surge of glowing web-like energy. Luminous strands shot outwards, curling around JP's body, tightening, weaving, and locking into place as the suit formed piece by piece. The chest emblem burned brightly as the webbing solidified. Boots and gloves materialized in a rush of energy. With a sharp shimmer, the mask snapped into place. Its lens ignited. A final burst of red and blue energy burst outwards. JP landed, hands in a crouched stance, one hand to the ground, the other clenched, fully transformed as Spider-Man. The Rangers stood ready. Across from them, the Rhino cracked his knuckles loudly. "Oh good," he groaned, colour-coded weirdos. The Nega Rangers charged forwards. "Royal Britannia, ready!" shouted the 4 Royal Britannia Rangers as they rushed to meet them head-on. The English Ranger collided directly with the Time Force Nega Ranger. Both Rangers struck each other simultaneously before spinning into a fast-paced martial art exchange. The Scottish Ranger ducked beneath a blast from the Leviathan Nega Ranger before countering with a powerful kick to the chest that sent the Nega Ranger skidding backwards across the pavement. Nearby, the Irish Ranger flipped over the Fenrir Nega Ranger, sweeping strikes, landing behind him and smashing her elbow into the back before blasting him with her sidearm. The Welsh Ranger faced the Nega Queen Ranger, their weapons clashing repeatedly as sparks flew through the air. Meanwhile, the Rhino cracked his massive fists together and looked towards JP. "Oh, Spider Ranger, want some?" JP tilted his head. "Actually, no." A blast of webbing shot across the street into Rhino's eyes. "It's Spider-Man. Different brand deal." The Rhino ripped the webbing off his eyes and roared as he charged. The ground shook beneath every step as the massive villain stormed forwards like a runaway truck. Spider-Man fired two webs, instantly swinging upwards, just as the Rhino smashed through a parked bus where he had been standing seconds earlier. "Okay," Spider-Man muttered, while swinging between buildings. "You are way bigger in person." The Rhino ripped a traffic light from the ground and hurled it through the air. Spider-Man flipped over, landing briefly on the side of the building, before launching himself back downwards, feet first, into the Rhino's face. The hit staggered the giant beast, but only for a second. The Rhino grabbed Spider-Man mid-leap and hurled him through a shop window. Glass exploded everywhere. "Oh!" The Rhino charged again. Spider-Man's spider sense screamed. At the last second, he vaulted upward as the Rhino smashed through the entire building front. Back on the main street, the Rangers continued battling the Nega Rangers. The English Ranger locked his Royal Lance with the Nega Time Force Ranger's Time Striker. "You don't have to do this!" shouted the English Ranger. The Time Force Nega Ranger said nothing. Instead, he kicked the English Ranger backwards before firing an energy blast straight into the English Ranger's chest. The Irish Ranger and Scottish Ranger fought back to back against the Fenrir and Leviathan Nega Ranger, while the Welsh Ranger continued dueling the Nega Queen Ranger. "We're pushing them back," yelled the Scottish Ranger. For a moment it looked true. Then the Nega Queen raised her staff. Dark purple lightning erupted outwards, forcing all four Rangers backwards. "Another time, Rangers," she hissed. Black energy suddenly spiraled around the Nega Rangers. "No!" shouted Artie as he rushed forwards. Too late. The villains vanished in a burst of darkness. Silence briefly filled the air across the damaged street. Then came a distant crash. Everyone turned. Across the road, the Rhino stumbled forwards, completely covered in thick layer of webbing. What is this stuff?" he roared. Spider-Man swung around the lamppost at full speed. "Oh, this is premium blended." He fired a dozen more webs rapidly. The Rhino toppled sideways into the street with a thunderous crash, completely cocooned from head to toe. The giant villain struggled helplessly. Spider-Man landed on top of him casually. As the four Royal Britannia Rangers and Spider-Man celebrated their victory, two black cars and a massive black van pulled up beside the destroyed street. The Oscorp logo was embellished across the side. Men in heavy black armour stepped out immediately. One of them approached Artie. "We'll take it from here." "What? I don't think," the English Ranger began, before his communicator suddenly chimed. "Stand down, Rangers. Let the men take the Rhino," came Eric's voice. The Rangers reluctantly stepped back as the armoured men lifted the Rhino into the van, still completely webbed up. Without another word, the convoy drove away. Spider-Man watched them disappear down the road. "We all saw that coming, didn't we?" said JP. The others murmured agreement. Back at Ranger Council headquarters, Eric was already in a heated argument with a large, imposing, dog-like alien officer standing nearly 6 foot tall. Commander Kruger folded his arms. "Mr. Myers, while I respect the authority of the Ranger Council, may I remind you that you do not have jurisdiction in this matter. And may I remind you, Commander Kruger, that you and SPD do have jurisdiction. So why are you and Space Patrol Delta letting Osborn get away with this? Argued Eric back. Despite the obvious argument between them, Kruger sighed heavily. SPD may have jurisdiction, but we have to abide by what the state authorities say. My hands are tied, Eric. With that, Commander Kruger turned and walked out of the command chamber. The Rangers and Spider-Man stood quietly nearby, as Eric rubbed his forehead. Finally, he looked towards them. Good job out there. Sorry for having the Rhino taken away. We're working on it. Without waiting for a response, Eric headed off towards his office. The team slowly left the command chamber and almost immediately encountered Merlin walking through the corridors. Ah, Royal Britannia Rangers. I heard about the battle. You handled it as well as the original Rangers would have, he said warmly. Thanks, Merlin, said Sam. A moment later, Jason Lee Scott and Master Splinter approached. You are looking well, my friend. Well enough to finish our chess match, I think, said Splinter. Only because you were winning, my old friend, Merlin replied with a smile. Then suddenly, Merlin's expression changed. He closed his eyes for a second. The corridor fell silent. When he opened them again, the humour had vanished from his face. Mr. Scott, I need you to do me a favour. A Merlin from another universe has just asked me to get in contact with the Red Cornish Ranger. Would you please call Universe 2118 immediately? Of course, Merlin, said Jason, before quickly rushing back to the command chamber. Splinter stepped closer. My friend, what is wrong? Merlin looked deeply troubled. A team of Rangers has lost their Cornish Ranger and are in need of some backup from our mark. Find out what is happening in the 100th episode of The Adventures of the Red Cornish Ranger. Power Rangers Universes Collide. TikTok Rangers in danger.